And welcome to today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm your host, Michelle Graves, affectionately known for the last 40 years as the Money Lady. And as always, I'm deeply appreciative of your support of this program in the markets that we're in, as well as your support of this station, the remarkable DATV, headquartered in Dayton, Ohio, and one of the foremost leaders in the area of public broadcasting. I am so richly blessed to have, again, a phenomenal staff, along with my lead producer, Ben Artis, Melissa Constantine, their director. All these people make this production possible. It just doesn't happen. If you know anything about television and how television works, it's a machine. And it works click, click, click. If you're not on task and if you're not prepared, the results are permanent. Why? Because thanks to the power of YouTube, it will be playing forever, okay? Or it'll be in some venue forever. So my task is to make sure that I am very prepared for the subject matter I'm going to talk about. If I have guests, that they are very comfortable in front of a television camera, because many people completely freeze up like a deer with headlights on. And to make sure that the content is relevant and pertinent to you. My goal has always been, from the inception of this show 13 years ago, precisely for this station, that it is to not only inform you and expose you to information, but empower you and your families to thrive, not just survive, but to thrive. I'm working on a book right now, as we speak, about thriving in the midst of a storm, surviving this economy. I'm an economist, first and foremost. I am an economist by training, international economics, American University, Washington, D.C., mentored under some great men in the field of economics, and allowed me to see with clarity what is happening at this time in history, which is the subject matter of what I'm talking about today. I don't have a guest. It's just me and you. And I'm going to talk to you straight because somebody needs to tell you the truth. So moving forward over these next weeks, I'm going to be dealing with subject matter that may not be real familiar to you as it affects you personally, but boy, oh boy, we are experiencing the outcome of some very disastrous stuff that's happening within our country as well as globally. And like it or not, some of the misinformation, disinformation, and more importantly, no information leaves the American citizenry floundering, because you don't know what moves to make, you don't understand why, and you keep operating out of what psychologists call denial. This is really happening, viewers, okay? I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, but when it is happening and you refuse to open up your eyes and see it for what it is and plan accordingly, then I'm left to conclude that you won't open up your eyes either because you fear what you may see. You suspect it because God didn't make us stupid, but you can't put together the pieces. So you just say, I'm not going to deal with it. Well, you don't have to deal with it, ladies and gentlemen, and even Toto the dog. You don't have to deal with it. It's dealing with you. If you think I'm kidding, go to the grocery store and look at the shelves. And yeah, they're empty. They're empty because trucks haven't delivered or people have panicked and started buying and hoarding. I suspect the latter because I myself have been putting away all kinds of food for hard times. Why? Because I don't know in all my years of training how we're going to come out of this. We started putting away stuff during COVID, and COVID was the game changer for everybody. But we had no idea what we're looking at today and that it would happen so quickly. That's how interconnected the world is today. Whether you like people that look like you or not, that speak your language or not, does not deny the truth. And the truth is, we're in a new reality. What you thought does not line up with what is happening. So my commitment is to give you education and information for this new certainty. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going back. Nope, 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 nope. And I mean, no disparaging Great Britain and the people of the great country of Britain, still saying, God bless the Queen or the King or whomever. And you all know that is so not today. I mean, it's deeper than Charles and Camilla and Charles and Princess Diana, although people still talking about that. This is reality right now. Right now. The world is moving in powerful directions. And you are on this planet until God calls you home, wherever that may be. But in the interim, you need to know, and then you need to prepare. Now, today's segment, I'm going to give you the macro, which is the big picture. I've talked to you over the years consistently. You all know I don't cut my tongue, particularly when it comes to documentation, data, and truth. A lot of people don't want to deal with data. The first thing they say is that, well, that's not relevant to me. And I'm like, well, maybe you're in denial. Maybe it is relevant to you, but because you're in denial, you cannot process the information that is so freely given. What I'm going to share with you on this show is information that you can verify. You don't have to believe anything I say. You can say, well, that's her opinion. I'm sorry, folks. I am professionally trained. I am licensed. I've gone through all these hoops. At the great age of 73, I have lived to see real live economics and economic theory play out, good and bad. Right now is not so good. Not so good. You may not like what I'm saying, but it would behoove you to listen, because it's going to affect you and your purse or your pants. It is, right now. And many of you already know. You got kids, you don't know how you're going to make it. Your hours at work are being shorted. You don't know how you're going to pay your bills. You're behind on your mortgage, and the credit card companies have started calling you because you're over your limit or you're approaching your limit. But you do know that we're in a different time. And oh, by the way, COVID is not gone. But we do now have a recurrence of measles and other things that I thought were behind us. I mean, when I was a child, we had to stand in line and take these sugar-covered somethings to make sure that we didn't get measles. And nobody had a debate about would measles kill you. We also knew about polio. And there was no debate about that either. Nobody's personal opinion other than it was highly contagious. And our parents said, get in line and shut up. And that's what we did. And I'm here today. Thank God I had civil parents and civilized neighbors and an administration that wasn't hearing anything other than protect your children from disease. Stop being intellectual. Death is not intellectual. Death is final. And that child that you thought you were protecting is now gone. And you're madder than a hatter, some of you, because, well, now life showed you. So, today's new reality is about the realignment of the world and the impact of the realignment of the world on your pocketbook or your pants or your bank account or whatever method you do money business in. You have some method, but what's going on now is critical, and we're moving into crisis mode. I definitely feel, hear me well, by August of 2025, we're going to be in the midst of a real serious meltdown. And don't quote me what stockbrokers tell you about the stock market. Use your common sense, okay? Use your common sense. Look at it for you. Are you feeling it? Doesn't feel good. Are you a little nervous? You should be. Do I have glad tidings? No. But I do have a way of living that we're going back to. Kicking and screaming, because that pride thing is hard. It's hard to admit you don't have it going on and that your leaders, your politicians are crazy. That is a familiar story in days back, but a little bit different feel in today's economy. The first and most important thing you must know for this new reality is it is imperative that you develop a mindset, despite who is an elected official, politician, anything else, that says that my first priority in this human life is to get through it. Inch by inch is a cinch. Yard by yard is really hard. That's one old adage, and it's true. If you can look at your family as your world, your country, and that every part of your family has to be productive, meaning everything your family unit does has to be for the survival of the family. And to that wit, if you have young children, you have to be willing to begin to teach them the necessary skills that are going to be necessary for the family unit to survive. Now, what can little people do? A whole lot, because they don't have a lot of clutter. You can teach little people, 5 years old even, how to sort clothing, how to wash dishes. If you wash by a dish, using an old method of a dishpan, you can teach children lots of things. Remember, in the old America, before we had labor laws, and in England, where that mess came from, children were worked like animals in factories, in fields, where many of them still are, and children were considered an essential part of the economy. Now, with child labor laws and all of that, they were working children 15 hours a day. And they didn't require a lot to eat, so they weren't feeding them much. I'm just giving you history in this country and also in Great Britain, where child abuse was rampant. Okay? So please don't give me this Swami dance about Great England, because England was a hot mess, but they were the most fierce military force on the world. Ask India. Ask the United States. We went to war with them twice. And having beat their behinds, they came to the table humbled and willing to talk. That's the story. That's the facts. That's the truth. But moving into where we are today, because we became the king master after Great Britain's complete demise, financially as well as economically. And it became us. That position was solidified after World War II, okay, where we became the guardian of the planet, with military bases everywhere to make sure everybody was civilized. Well, it cost us a ton of money. It allowed them to grow real fast because they didn't have to pay for their own armies. And in the end, it cost us because we allowed them to carry the lightest load while we, the American citizenry, for the sake of power and control. What the heck does that mean when you're starving? Yeah. Germany's back on the rise. Yep. Japan, but we don't even have to talk about Japan. Japan is our number one debt holder. Right, that little teeny island. Okay, number one debt holder. How did this happen? How did we go from being at the top of our game to floundering and dealing with all manner of conversation and communication with the world? How do we deal with this? How are we at a point where we're talking about taking over Greenland and consolidating Canada, our most dear friend, and using Mexico and changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico, which has been for hundreds of years, to the Gulf of America? I mean, what? This is not reality TV, and this is not a game show. And if we had the power to play it out, ladies and gentlemen, it would be one thing. But if you think for 1 minute, I mean, I'm just being Michelle, if you think for 1 minute the Canadians are going to become the 51st state, you got to be on some form of medication or need therapy or need something. If you think that Greenland is going to consent, the nation of Denmark is going to consent to that? What? Stop. And that's the new reality. Stop. Where did sanity leave us? And where did the... It's okay to say you're a big shot if you are. And don't get me wrong. The United States is powerful, but the United States is only powerful because of its people. Okay? The rich boys are not going to war. It's the working people's children that are going to war and dying, by the way. Male and female now. But let's be clear about what power looks like. Because power says, if you don't give me what I want, I'm sending them after you. And who is them? Our children. Our grandchildren. You think I like that? Wrong. No. If you want to enforce boundaries, you and your buddies raise money, like you do anyway, and send mercenaries to do your dirt. Okay? And you're going to pay them. You're going to pay them. But at least it's crisp and clear. You're not pulling on us to do your dirty work. Okay? And I only say this because I never thought I'd live in history to see the U.S. Marine Corps in Los Angeles. Are you kidding me? Those great fighters fighting the American people? Oh my God, it pains me. Because they are trained to kill. Excuse me, let me drink something. My throat feels dry. Turmeric and ginger tea works like a charm. If you haven't tried it before, I'm going to urge you. They sell it at all the grocery stores. Turmeric and ginger. It's wonderful for your throat, for your lungs, for your general health. Coffee is not a winner. Sorry, it may be selling a lot, but your answer is going to come in herbs. That's a sidebar. That's not a part of my general conversation today. But moving on. So, that was then. It cost us a fortune. We lost in Vietnam. I'm in that generation where people were drafted and died. And Vietnam is now certifiably communist, which it was anyway. And they making a pile of business because they have fallen in love with Profitability and making money get you every time. We lost in Afghanistan. I watched on television as people were fleeing for their lives. Not funny. The Taliban, not funny. Stop killing our sons and daughters for the sake of your agenda. Okay? All we want is to be able to come over here, which many of us have. I came from people that were slaves. We didn't ask to come over here. But that's what power does, and guns. And 400 years later, we're still here and still struggling. My point in saying all of this is simple. And that is that at this time in history, that strategy is not working. Not that it ever has, but it cleared. So now we're in Ukraine and we're in Gaza. And we're talking about the Russians like they're the devil. Excuse me. Excuse me. If you really understood what was happening in Ukraine, you'd run for the hills. You would. You would run for the hills. If you understood what was happening with Gaza, where they've isolated the United States and Israel, okay? And everybody's like, oh, we're not touching that one. But what does it do to the American people and the soul of a nation? When we're being perceived, as I tell my foreign friends, we're not like that. Your people, get your finger pointing right. The American people are here to be able to live a life of freedom and democracy, fairness. We recognize that we're not going to be super rich. That's absurd. Whoever told you that is misinformed. The majority of us are not wealthy, and at this point, not even middle class. So what am I saying with all of this? If this is all new information for you, take the time and research the data. You will find that this train we're on has been moving actively for about 70 years. China just didn't rise up. China is where it is today because of American capitalists who saw an opportunity to make a ton of money off the backs of very poor Chinese workers who are willing to work for very little in a communist form of politics. And the wealthy became incredibly wealthy. And the few that started out became a ton of corporations that simply moved their operations overseas. At the demise of the American worker, they moved overseas. Why? Because you can't compete in the capitalist system if the company is paying a worker $20 an hour and they can get the same work done for 25 cents an hour. Now, it's much higher now, and that was 20-something years ago. But remember, this is a 70-year span that factories, which is really where the money is made. Technology is sweet, but that's not where the money is made for the mass of people. We got to produce things. We call it in economics widgets. You got to produce widgets. And those widgets have to be priced to be sold typically to the American consumer. So, in an integrated manufacturing process, everything's made at the same place. The people are paid well because of the presence of unions in many cases that forced employers to pay them this. But when given the opportunity, That plant was closed, and they were in Korea, they were in China, they were in Vietnam. They were everywhere but here because the wage rates were so low. And come on, with technology, you can have stuff over here in a split second. You can talk to your workers over there. You can have managers that are their country talking to them, following instructions. And the profits were staggering. So staggering, in fact, that Tim Cook, and I may be quoting him incorrectly, but when he was mandated to bring Apple back to the U.S., you need to know he just bust out laughing. Really? We can't afford an Apple iPhone, I have one, made in the U.S. versus over there. We can't. And numerically, we don't have the numbers. Our population is none to compare with what's going on overseas. That's just a fact. So, we are there. So what does that mean for you? Well, a couple of things. First thing is you thought your wages were bad over here. Well, I'm here to tell you, they're going to get worse. Because here's the deal. We haven't had a federal increase on minimum wage, $7 and some absurd. You can't even live on $7.50 an hour. When you look at rent, when you look at food, when you look at gas and electric, when you look at your water bill, when you look at the gas that you got to put in your car to get you from point A to point B, even if the whole family's working, that's a press. And then plop over it inflation, which is your money's one amount, but inflation's going on up the hill. This is why Dollar General published their most recent financials, and they are doing phenomenal. Everybody's at Dollar Tree, Dollar General, everybody. Why? Because it's off-brand stuff, but it cooks the same. Now that's truth. What I'm talking to you about is truth right now. So what am I saying here? I'm saying to you that this scenario where the American worker will continue to be slam blasted. When they build a factory over here, it's going to take 3-4 years. And the reality is that you need help now. That's what our politicians need to be you need to be telling people how they're going to get help now. You need to have the courage of FDR, a great president, won 3 terms. Rich man, but he made other rich men pay through taxes to put our working people to work, to build the dams, the roads, all those things were paid off the backs of these wealthy people. Why? Because who's the guy that robbed all the banks? Jesse James said, you go where the money is. I rob banks because that's where the money is. So he took money from the rich through taxation, aggressive taxation. He didn't give them tax breaks, folks. He made them pay to build this stuff. Okay? And they should pay because it's the American people that built this country. Okay? And they weren't all white people. They were Chinese people. They were black people. They were brown people. This country was a social experiment of which a few benefited. But those days are gone because people are not stupid. They recognize I cannot make a living. Evictions and foreclosures are through the roof right now. That's the truth. Rather than a landlord coming out of denial and saying, well, they may be a slow pay, but at least I'm getting money, you're going to evict them, so now you get nothing. Well, I'm going to put some other people in. You're going to find out that no money means just that. No money. How are retirees going to feel? If you're not feeling it already, you should. Panicked. I can't believe this. Believe it. Open up your eyes, blink, 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 and say, what do I need to do to get through this? Because this is not a short-term thing. Most economists recognize that we're going into a period known as stagflation. Stagflation it makes inflation look like kitty land. Stagflation simply means when your wages are stagnant, meaning they're not going up, and yet inflation is going up. So your real wages are going down because you have less money at the end of the day. That's stagflation. It is the worst thing that a country could want. And typically, when countries run into stagflation, the next thing behind that is war. Because you know what? War is good for business. War puts people to work making guns. War puts people to work dropping bombs. War makes money. Now, the only thing about this type of war, and it's deeper than clones and drones and AI, is that nuclear war is the end for everybody. It's not like you're shooting guns. You got drones that are much more efficient and aim much more effectively. I did some catch up because I'm not a movie person, but I did catch up on some movies, and the drones are ferocious little things. And being directed by robots, ferocious little things, while we sit on the sideline and just wait to get blown up to smithereens. What a wonderful story. This is why this is now the time, in my humble estimation, and I don't claim to have all the answers. In fact, at this time in history, I don't have too many answers. That's why I'm writing this book on how to survive. But I will say to all of you, your number one priority is your family. And having I don't want to say come to Jesus, but it may be. And you have to let them know what your finances look like. Parents don't want to tell their children they're broke. Why? Because, well, they may think I'm irresponsible. You are. Because when you could be saving, you were spending. And why were you spending? Because this is America, and I want what I want. Well, deal with it. Tell your children the truth and work out a plan where everybody has to do something. I did the math, and the reason I did the math is because at one point in my long life in finance, I owned a mortgage bank. Yeah, a black woman owned a mortgage bank. Get over it. Now I had a white guy that was my president because I'm not stupid. They don't really want to deal with a black woman owning a mortgage bank, but I did. And this is what I found. When I was making loans to people that were coming in from other countries, like Latinos, Mexicanos, they all worked. The children, everybody worked. They had multiple families living in an apartment. They were there to accumulate money so that they could buy a home. So there'd be 8 people on the deck on mortgage loan, and they all paid as agreed. And when they had a certain amount of equity, they systematically would take the money out because the house had grown in value, and they would help the next person to buy a house, and the next person. And before you know it, the whole family was living in the neighborhood. It didn't take as long as you would think because they were totally focused on cash. They don't do any credit cards. It's cash, cash, cash. They fix your roof, cash. They fix your walls, cash. They fix whatever, cash. Because cash is king when you are broke. You don't have any business in the credit card business. That was a game. They played that game on the American working people. How? Because they knew you weren't making enough money to be able to afford all the things that you wanted, because America has marketing and advertising and 24/7 lying out their pants. Oh, you can get windows. You can get a house. You're American. I'm like, really? Are we that gullible? Answer is yes. Yes. So, family first. Secondly, if you are in debt, you make a planned decision to get out of debt. And that is to say, I'm not going to do this anymore. At 34.99% interest, you shouldn't be in the game anyway. But they put credit cards in place so that you would have the ability to buy stuff that they were selling. You couldn't afford it based on your income, but you could afford it if you could cha-ching, cha-ching, ching, 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 put it on your credit card. I can buy the dress I want for that special event. Okay, the dress sold for $129. The Chinese made it for $5. You bought the dress for $129 plus interest. That dress is worth $5. And you want to know why you can't get ahead? Well, come out the market, period, and pay off your debt. Pay off your debt. Now you say, but it's so much. Well, inch by inch is a cinch. Do other things to make money. And that is not getting a second job, but look at your skills and the things you can do internally. I mean, there are many, many people out here that don't understand that most of the world sells stuff. When I lived in China, during the day they worked for Chinese companies that paid them a pittance, and at night the whole family was out with a kiosk selling stuff. The children playing instruments to entertain you at the dinner table, and you tipping them. And all that money, and in China they did not allow credit cards. You could save, but you could not do credit cards because the communist government said, oh no, we was educated in Harvard and Stanford and Columbia. We know your system. Oh, you all forgot? The Chinese learned all this over here from us. Yeah. And they came back and they said, this is what we're not going to do. And they didn't. The whole time I was over there, I had to do cash or nothing. No credit card, nothing. Things have changed, but the bottom line is that is a horrible way to go down. But I'm saying to you today, if you can make a commitment over the next 18 months to not spend a dime on anything other than necessities, and I do mean necessities, let it go and get out of debt. You'll breathe easier, you'll live freer. If you are running into mortgage payments, making the payments on a timely basis, first thing you need to do is you need to let your lender know that you're having problems and why, so they can put you on a payment plan. Now, if they put you on a plan, you have to adhere to the principles of the plan. You cannot be delinquent. You cannot go through depression and want to buy a bunch of alcohol and drugs because I need to drown my tears in this alcohol. No, you don't. You need to get other sources of income so that you can make your mortgage payments on the adjusted payment basis. 30 years is a long time to have a house. And banks know this. And the interest they make on your house is 3 to 4 times what you paid for that house anyway. They're having a great day, okay? They are. You learn the system. If you still cannot keep up with your minimum payment requirements, which I believe you can, because even if you owe aggregate $18,000 and you're able to pull together resources to allow you to pay 10% of that, you will find that you will come out of that situation faster than you anticipated. But the key thing here, the takeaway here is I'm aware that I've been a sucker. I'm aware that I've been seduced by the thought that I could be rich, even if I looked rich. Fake it till you make it. That's not the way capitalism works. You're going to pay for everything. You're going to pay for everything. Even you can't even die without paying. You're going to pay the mortician. You're going to pay the crematoria if you choose to go a cheaper way. You're going to pay. Period. The third thing, you want to make sure you keep steady and purposeful. Again, like I said, the family, then secondly, getting out of debt. Third, looking at streams of income, what you need to do, how you need to get there. And so much stuff, so much money is made today online, digitally. Don't be intimidated. They're not smarter than you. They're just more resourceful. Or they may be hungrier. Because there's a pile of young people. That's why you can't get young people to keep jobs. Because they're making a ton of money digitally, Uber, Lyft. Oh, you say, oh, they're not making any money. Excuse me, please. I am a Uber customer. And to go from my home to the airport one way is $50, of which the bulk of it goes to them for picking me up at whatever hour I need. So you pay for convenience. You don't think they're banking money? They banking tons. So do $50 7 times a day. That's $350. Multiply it times 7 days a week. And they making over $2,000 a week driving a car to take you someplace. I mean, $2,000 a week times 52 weeks in a year, that's over $100,000 for driving a car. Just do the math and come up out of the pride. And, I got Lyft. There's a ton of people making money doing simple things. Simple things like you can agree if you're willing to do daycare. You can specialize in taking care of the elderly while people are at work. Okay? Now, again, you're charging what the market says, but people will pay because they need the help. Look at areas in the marketplace where you can do things on your own and do well. That's the third. Streams of income. So, powwow with the family, out of debt, streams of income. If you can do, and you can go on internet. You say, I don't have a computer. You got a public library. I know, I'm a fan of the library all over the country because all their services are taxpayer funded through levies and things. They got a system. I'm telling you, in Cincinnati, Hamilton County, Ohio, the public library is a beast. Okay? You walk in there, you think you've transported into another world. The kids are on computers. Old people are on computers. Everybody's on computers. They got database link-ups all over the world. You can research how to get a job in a depression economy. And it'll give you can go to ChatGPT free and ask the thing, what kind of job do I need? And it'll tell you what you need in less than a minute. You can be free if you're willing to humble yourself and to get the necessary research. So I'm saying, because my time is running up and out, you've got to be aware. China is not the enemy. If anything, our capitalist class of business owners created that thing by looking for cheap everything, and the Chinese now have the fastest growth next to India in the world. India is another powerhouse. And do they need us? Don't you believe that lie? No, they don't. Proof was when the U.S. thought by cutting Russia off from Europe in terms of the oil, that was going to stop Russia. And Russia was like, you got me stuck. They sold the oil to China, to India, and everybody else that wanted oil. And now their growth is faster than it was before. It's a new day. People are doing business all over the world with whomever. And you cannot come out on the playing field with packing John Wayne pistols talking about I'm the man, and they will say, whatever. How you like starvation? Because those people, after 2 world wars, and we were blessed, we only had Pearl Harbor. What about your entire nation blown to smithereens? They're not really feeling all that. They're very much aware that it's about business, and it's about making sure everybody gets a piece, and that everybody's not a pig waiting to go to a slaughterhouse. It is about trying to proceed with an understanding that if I do good, everybody does good. I don't get anywhere by cutting other people's throats off. I don't get anywhere by being nasty to a person because of the color of their skin or because of their sexual behavior. I don't even care. I'm taking care of my family. Remember, my number one job is to take care of my family. And that's what I will do. And everything else, hey, I humped, no debt. I'm doing other things now that I'm semi-retired. I'm writing a book about how to survive and thrive during this Trump economy, because tariffs was a bad decision. Oh, it made you feel, oh, I'm going to stick it to them. The tariffs stuck it to you. Yeah. We paying taxes and we're paying for that. You can't buy a daggone car from another country without paying the U.S. government the tax for the tariff. How you like that? And everybody, rah, 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 rah. I'm like, stop, time out. You need information and you need education, which is why I am here today talking about that very thing. So I've told you, if you want other streams of income, which you should, everybody has gifts and talents. The book of Ecclesiastes talks about 8 streams of income. If God told you you need 8 streams of income, are you just tired of reading? What? Well, I'm just trusting. He didn't say anything about trust. King Solomon said, the wisest man in the world, 8 streams. So get it going. Yeehaw, as they say in Texas. Get it going. And get it going now. Because, again, I expect something to happen in August. I'm not privileged or at liberty to say what. But I'm saying to you, you have been warned. And you have been forewarned. Read between the lines so you can hear what people are saying. They do not have to do business with us anyway. Please understand that. The American worker, when manufacturing left this country on a one-way trip to Asia, starting with China, but now it's all of them. Because India is actually a part of Asia. Okay? It's not a part of Europe. It's part of Asia. So along with Indonesia and other great countries, great histories. My point is that when we can come down from our high horse and recognize that we all have to get along. I'm from Kentucky, and I tell folks, poor people, poor white people, poor black people, poor period. You get along with everybody. Yeah, I want you to buy my pie. You know, I specialize in pies. They work it out. That's what the new world system is going to look like for those who succeed. You take care of your family, and then you take care of your community, and then you take care of others. But you start with the basics, and you don't ever demean or look down on anybody because you don't know anything about them, and you don't know their story. You don't. So love them anyway. For real. Love them anyway. And be happy for whatever they're able to get. Not mean, hateful, jealous, cut your throat, figure out how I'm going to do better. That's an old world system. That's old. Young people know that. That's why they're not talking to older people. 5 generations right now in our country. 5 generations. And the young people have seen it all. That's why it's not about them being awake. It's about internet educated them. and they don't believe a daggone thing you told them because they've lived with you. They've seen you. They check you out. And their decision is, can I do divorce court today? Because I don't want anything to do with that. My friends are all over. My friends are all kinds of colors and people and situations and cultures. This is where we are. When God created humans, we're all over the planet. Get over this notion that you are somehow better than other people. We all want the best for our families. We all want to have a decent wage or the opportunity to have our own businesses, which is where most of the world is anyway. Everybody overseas has a side hustle. They do, or a primary hustle. They don't have to be rich. They just have to be fed. They have to take care of their families. Okay? They want to see their kids in college too. For real. It's eye-opening. I tell people I wish most of us could go and see how other people live. But since only 5% of Americans even have passports, 95 don't have a clue. That's a sad story. So I'm not on a bandwagon. I'm just, the whole thing about this show today was exposing you through information and education to a little bit of what's going on so that you will not be duped. Because we're in this situation now because we've been duped, okay? And we can't break through it because we don't know how, but the answer is right in front of you, begging to be heard, which is the world moves on. And it will move on whether you like it or not. You'll either die like that one woman from Idaho. Well, we're all going to die. Well, just thank you for that revelation, Senator. We know we're all going to die. But it's how we die that's important. Okay? And I don't even want to go there. I'm not. In the remaining time that I have, new world, a certainty, not a maybe. The U.S. is no longer the kingpin. Get over it. It's not the end of the world. Now we can begin to look at what the new world is going to look like and the role that countries and experiences are going to play in shaping our future and the future of our children and our grandchildren. I want my grandchildren to not have any isms in their life. Period. I don't want any isms. I want them to know the power of cooperation and collaboration and loving your neighbor as yourself. I didn't say it. Someone greater and bigger said it for me. But I emphasize to all of you that this is something you're going to have to break through and truly, truly, truly do as I said. Don't be blind. Don't be gullible. And don't get hyped up over things that are not the truth. I'm Michelle Graves, affectionately known for over 40 years, if you can believe that. And don't you like my attire today? I just wanted to do something different. Known as the Money Lady. Yep. And I'm moving into a different phase of my life now. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for your support. I'm grateful for your encouragement. And most importantly, I'm grateful for your love and for your prayers. Not just for me, but for your friends and for your family, because we're going to need a whole lot of that in the upcoming days. God bless you and take care. Bye-bye.